So what's up, y'all? Back again today. We got the Uber Confessions Part 3 today. Today we're gonna have a very special dialogue. I'm not gonna show the gentleman's face because he asked not to be identified, so he must have something on his mind. Today is November 9th, the morning of the announcement that Donald Trump was elected president of the United States, okay? So now I'm with my Uber driver and we're gonna talk just real talk. He said he wants to get explicit real talk so I could get explicit. So now he asked me a question. Sir, can you ask me that question again?
The question I asked is, what is your definition of a nigger?
My definition of a nigger.
Where were they created and how were niggers created?
Okay. Nigger. A nigger to me, I believe, is, well, you're saying creation. So you're saying creation. I feel you with that, but first I have to define. I think a nigger is an uninformed, unlearned, unintelligent person who perpetuates negative stereotypes. I think that's what a nigger is.
Okay, so I agree with your definition of someone being ignorant and so forth.
Okay.
But the bigger picture is how, well, first of all, my definition of a nigger is a mentality that was created on a slave plantation that is self-destructive, that is self-hating. So I think with the new president-elect Donald Trump, if you already have a nigger mentality, the next 4 years will only feed into your addiction. In other words, the next 4 years will only make you a bigger whatever you are right now.
Okay, so first you said, you told me that a nigger was a creation.
Oh, absolutely.
And can you expound on that idea?
Well, niggers were created on slave plantations.
Okay.
And so nigger is in fact.
Wait. Let me stop you there.
Okay.
You say a nigger was created on a slave plantation.
Absolutely. Niggers were created on a slave plantation.
Okay. Well, what about the idea that people call us black people niggers, like nigger? They called us that maybe before we were slaves. What about that idea?
No, I don't really support that. I don't know that to be true because the whole concept prior to slavery, blacks or Africans were called Negro, meaning black in Spanish, but the slang nigger is an American slang. True. That came strictly from slavery and after slavery.
Okay, and so now you're saying that word was created then, but then now you're saying that at some point black people then began acting like this?
Oh, absolutely. Not necessarily well, I won't say began acting like this. Black people were taught to act that way. I mean, they were basically taught to be self-hating. Number one, think about it. You had, on the slave plantation, men were encouraged to make babies or have children and then walk away and abandon their children. So that's a pattern that we see today. Men were encouraged or forced to be studs to create more slaves for the plantation. As a result, you got a lot of young men right now who are caught up into this rap and some of this pimp mentality.
Okay, so when you say studs, what do you mean by that, sir?
What I mean is men who abuse women, who want to have more than one woman at all times, who would basically impregnate a woman and then just impregnate multiple women. Let's put it out there, and then don't take responsibility for the creation of the life that they just made.
So you're saying that these actions that many of us as black people are perpetuating nowadays are actually direct correlations, and they stem directly from our oppression as slaves on the plantation?
Absolutely.
Okay, so now back to Donald Trump, because now he's been elected the president this morning, and we got to kind of talk about that. Did you see, I don't know if you saw this video a couple days ago about this guy who got into it in traffic, a black dude who got into it with traffic against a Trump supporter. And the Trump supporter, he gets out and he's like, Trump, Trump, Trump. And he's like cursing and calling the guy a nigger, telling him black lives don't matter. All because supposedly they got into, let's just say, a traffic violation. And he got out and was screaming in his face and calling him a nigger and supporting Trump. Now, I bring that up because I personally, in Texas now, have ran into at least 3 to 4 people who support Trump and that actually have shown bigotry towards me and towards others. So now, what do you think about these quote-unquote Trump supporters that are openly expressing their bigotry and their hatred for anybody not white?
Okay, before I answer that question, let me tell you something that a lot of black people don't know.
Okay.
Prior, well, I won't say prior, but in the 1950s, in the 1960s, most blacks were actually Republican. Because the South basically wanted to keep black people oppressed, and so Northerners were considered conservative and liberal and wanted to abolish slavery.
Okay.
Okay. So let's start there. Now, getting back to Mr. Trump, what was your question again?
Oh, well, my question mainly was, what do you think about not necessarily his procedures, his protocols, or his politics, but the overall general rhetoric surrounding his campaign that his followers are flocking to, and to where some of them are actually lashing out in public and showing bigotry, and he's, as a leader, he has not said one thing to dismantle this or to calm this down or to tell his followers that he doesn't abide by this, he doesn't believe in this. What do you feel about that?
One thing is, I think we, unfortunately, and I do mean this, unfortunately, we have instituted a double standard on ourselves. And I say that because today we run around and we call ourselves niggers. Mm-hmm. We got the rap culture that we call ourselves niggers. We call our women bitches and hoes, and then we get upset when somebody white call us a nigger. Mm-hmm. Not only that, but we have politicians who get on CNN and try to justify that we have some privilege of calling ourselves niggers, when in fact, if we refer to ourselves as niggers, we're basically saying we're nothing but slaves. Mm. So the question is, how can we, first of all, why do we expect Donald Trump and his supporters to respect us? The only way you get respect is if you respect yourself. If you respect yourself, you shouldn't have to ask for respect, you demand respect.
Okay, so now that reminds me of something that's also kind of plaguing our society. They say that police brutality is something. What do you feel on the idea or the last few incidences where it's seemingly unarmed or innocent black men have been killed? Do you feel that is of any substance?
Of course it's of substance. I mean, police brutality, one of the things that we got to understand is a lot of hatred, bigotry that I would say politicians or law officials feel towards African Americans or black people. At some point, our government was the architect of that all. Mm. So now we have a African American president. You have an African American president. So you have some Americans who feel like their country has been taken away from them. I mean, you have a lot of white Americans who feel like their country has been taken away from them and just given to so-called minorities to try to balance the scales of history.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel that is a genuine concern for them to have?
I think it's somehow they've been fed the notion that there is a limited number of resources, and so that therefore there's not enough for all of us to coexist, which I think is incorrect, or which is foolish.
Right.
I think if a person works hard and live according to certain morals and standards, then it'll be fine. But if you have a group of people who want to oppress another people, who want to continue supremacy over another people, then I don't think that's going to fly. I don't think that's going to fly today. I don't think it's going to exist.
Right. Now you get into a good point. You bring up a good word, supremacy, and I've dabbled in this on my channel. I haven't gone fully in as much as I'd like to yet, but I wanted to speak on supremacy. And if you don't mind, I'd like to tell you my personal idea on supremacy. I think we have mistitled or misdirected our aim at this whole white supremacy thing. I think it's actually, there is white supremacy now, right? But we have to understand that it's just an ideology.
Absolutely.
The first thing we have to understand is that it is simply an ideology, right? Because what we do is, oh, white supremacy, and we make it this big monster and we don't know where to tackle it from. Once we tackle it from the idea that it's an ideology, we can get to the point to realize, hey, an ideology can be contested. An ideology can be confronted and maybe destroyed and dismantled with better logic. So when we understand that white supremacy is an ideology, right? The idea that white is supreme, that's just an idea.
Right.
So now we have to tackle the two words, white and supreme. So first, I could go deeply into it, but I had to define what white is. I could go deeply into what white is, and then I have to go understand what supreme is. So first, we have to just dismantle the idea. How can you tell me, as a race, that you are supreme to someone who predates you?
Absolutely. That's
first
key.
and foremost.
That's key what you said, predate you. That's one of the things that history, one of the biggest problems is Black Americans don't know true history.
True.
All they know is so-called American history, and they don't know the hidden history. They don't know the years of history, the process that went into making Black American slaves. They don't know the history of Black Americans or Africans before they came to America, how much of a great people we were. So all we know is this American culture that we have now. I think for every young Black person, number one, they need to study history, but they need to study history from an Afrocentric point of view and not a Eurocentric point of view.
How do we study history from an Afrocentric point of view?
First of all, there are a lot of scholars who understand you better than you understand. There are scholars such as Naim Akbar. There are leaders such as Minister Farrakhan, Elijah Muhammad, Sheikh Anta Diop, Marcus Garvey. These are people who have been somewhat maligned by, I would say, Americans, white Americans in particular, because they have a message and a program that will help you to be a better person. And let me say this also. Somehow, there's the misconception that if you are Black conscious, then you will hate other people. That is a lie, and that is untrue. Black consciousness only makes you more comfortable with who you are. If you're a racist and want to be a racist, that is a tendency that you will choose, and that is a direction that you'll go into. No one can make you a racist if you don't want to be one.
Okay, now with that reminds me of something. With white supremacy and destroying that ideology, it's not destroying a people, it's destroying an ideology, right?
Okay, so when I think of white supremacist ideology, it's in the same category with a slave mentality.
Agreed.
They're both the same.
Agreed. In what? But the slave mentality stems from that ideology of white supremacy.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's why I say we don't tackle it right, because we're like, oh, the police brutality, white supremacy. The fact that we don't have proper housing and proper schools, white supremacy. No, these are enforcements based on the ideology of white supremacy. So basically this means a group of people came around and came up with the idea that white people are supreme. From that idea, they did things like made jails, made certain constructs in society that would put us less than, to where it would enforce their ideology. So that's why nowadays we see people enforcing, and niggas too, niggas going around perpetuating stereotypes, which enforces the ideology of white supremacy.
Absolutely. Think about it. Go on Facebook. Look at all the filth that you see on Facebook. Look at how many times you see the word nigger on Facebook. Or look at the degenerative culture that we post and glorify on Facebook.
Let me ask you this. What do you say about the people who say it's not, Black people don't say nigger, they say nigga, and we use that as a term of endearment. Do you believe nigga can be used as a term of endearment?
I understand the word. I grew up with the word. I've actually used the word. But trying to justify the use of the word, knowing that it originated that it originated from slavery, no, I can't get with it. I can't get to it. Me personally, I have decided never to use the word and to, basically bar it from my vocabulary. Now, of course, I know there are some people who say it is used in terms of endearment. Okay, so instead of black people calling themselves niggers, why not say God? Why don't you call yourself a God? Why do you choose to be a nigger?
I think that goes back to, like you said, the lack of education. And okay, now what do you think about here's a touchy topic that I've was gonna talk about, but I why not just talk about it now? What do you think about, let's just say, interracial dating, meaning particularly white and black, in this environment where let's just say racial tensions are very high, to say the least?
Well, let me say this. True love, I honestly believe that true love is colorless, because love, in my opinion, love is somewhat of a feeling. Unfortunately, we have a lot of people dating interracially for the wrong reasons.
You want to touch on that?
Oh, absolutely. Number one is you have black men who see getting a white woman as getting back, as a potential way of getting back. Okay, white women looking at black men, knowing that for years and centuries they were considered the forbidden fruit, so they want a piece of it. Okay, you have a society that have been fed the misconception that black is not beautiful.
Okay,
and light skin is better, or straight hair is better, instead of embracing their own. So beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So there are a number of beautiful black women, but I'll explain it to you this way. White women only come in one shade, and that's white. If you want a light-skinned black woman, get you a high yellow black woman.
Sure.
Black women come in many shades. They come from blue, black, purple, all the way to high yellow, so you have the whole rainbow spectrum if that's what you want. But if you have a slave mentality and think you are getting something better than yourself, then you go flock to a white woman. Okay. And most of the times, the brothers who got white women, if you look at them, they look like trash. Their own people don't want them, so why would you want them?
Okay, he went in. So let me ask you this. But just a second ago, you did say though that true love exists. But also, I guess you're also then saying that it's just rare amongst particularly black and white, being the history, being the cultural diversity between the two. It's rare to find that true love, as opposed to it being something buried in forbiddenness, buried in something in taboo.
Absolutely. In other words, a lot of the interracial dating that we see today, I think, is a form of rebellion. It's a form of being somewhat oppressed from it. I see it as being labeled as taboo. And so those are the reasons that we're doing it, instead of getting to know another human being to find out if we're somewhat equally yoked with them.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Is it possible for a gentleman who grows up Afrocentric, as you say, and has an Afrocentric understanding of society and his history and culture, past and current, is it possible for such a person, man or woman, to then meet at the same age a white person who grew up with a Eurocentric point of view, who grew up listening to country as opposed to hip-hop, who grew up knowing the history of slavery as well? Is it possible for those two to equally yoke? I mean, considering the family's influence in the whole thing, considering society's influence, is it possible for that relationship to exist without one conforming to the other?
Well, I think it is possible for such a union to exist, only because I have a friend who is what I consider conscious and look at things from an Afrocentric point of view, and he is currently dating a European American woman.
Okay.
So it is possible.
It's
now in terms of one not conforming to the other, I think there would be some level of conformity, only because that will be the only way you'll be able to coexist. In other words, you can't have one left and one right and not come together on some commonality.
Okay, so with your friend though that's Afrocentric and dates a European woman, would you say that he leans more towards compromising towards her culture, or she leans more towards embracing his culture and his struggle?
Unfortunately, I think he's leaning more towards her culture, because his culture has been labeled as being the lesser or being wrong, and her culture has been perpetuated as being dominant.
And that stems back to the supremacy idea.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so in closing, brother, we covered it a lot, and I really appreciate it. We want to recap right quick. We want to say that Donald Trump has been elected our president. We want to say that that's not going to stop what we're doing, but we do have to reevaluate. We do want to say that there are open racists and there are open quote-unquote niggers who are perpetuating stereotypes. These are things that we've covered so far. And lastly, we covered just quickly the idea of interracial dating. So last question before I go off and let you go, brother. What would you say is a message, if anybody could hear this around the world, what message would you give to your brothers and sisters around the world at this very hour?
The message I would say is, whatever you are around the world or in the United States in particular.
If anybody can see this video right now, what is your message to your brothers and your sisters right now?
My message is, know thyself first and foremost. Know thyself. Know yourself from your perspective and not a perspective that has been perpetuated on you. Be comfortable in who you are. If you're comfortable in who you are, be comfortable in the decisions that you make. And don't get into this ideology of watching another people be oppressed, because eventually it'll come around to you. Strive to live a righteous life. Try to do the right things and treat everyone as fair as possible. But if there come a time, and perhaps that time has come, where African Americans in particular need to stop complaining and start defending themselves. Need to take responsibility for the communities that we live in. With all the drugs, we're allowing men to pimp and prostitute young girls before they even become women. So in particular, African Americans need to take control of the communities that they live. If we take control of the communities that we live in and clean them up, we can actually control the police and stop them from coming in and killing us. Most police officers that work in the black communities don't live in those communities. They basically come to the black communities for some action. So let's say they come to our communities and our women and men are decent, we're treating each other with respect, then they have no purpose to be there. So overall, that is the message I would have for people in general. The next 4 years, whatever you are, the next 4 years will only feed your addiction and make you bigger, whatever it is you are.
Deep, brother. All right, brother. I appreciate you, man. You did a blessing today. I appreciate you. God bless you, man.